Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really sharp analysis from Chronicles magazine that gets to the heart of a huge global question. As the US and China go head-to-head for influence in the developing world, who's actually set up to win?
Okay, so let's just jump right into this, because this question, posed by analyst Lipton Matthews, is everything. It suggests that this isn't just about who has more cash to throw around. It's about whether the US can even compete when China has fundamentally changed the game itself.
So the stage is set. You've got the Trump administration signaling that it wants to push back against China's influence, especially in places like Africa and the Caribbean. But the reality is, Beijing isn't just starting out. They've had a massive head start.
And when we say head start, look at this. China's footprint is literally everywhere. We're talking about the actual physical backbone of these countries, the roads you drive on, the ports where goods arrive, the power grids, and even the phone networks. Beijing has been systematically building the foundations of entire regions for years.
But here's the crucial point the author makes. Trying to just outspend China is probably a losing battle. The real issue, the real competition, is a clash between two totally different philosophies on how to do foreign policy.
And this brings us to the core of the whole analysis, the two competing playbooks. It's like the US and China are on the same field, but they're playing with completely different rulebooks. And the differences are, well, they're stark.
So on one hand, you have the United States. American foreign policy is almost always filtered through these big, abstract ideas, things like realism, liberal internationalism, human rights. Every move has to fit into a grand theory. China, not so much. Their approach is ruthlessly practical. It's transactional. All they care about are the outcomes.
And this right here really captures a huge point of friction. The US feels this constant pressure to justify everything it does, using a specific moral language, democracy, freedom, human rights. Beijing, on the other hand, just doesn't operate that way. They don't waste time trying to justify their actions with universal values. They just get to work.
What's really fascinating is how the article traces this all the way back to ancient philosophy. Western thought has historically been obsessed with these big, universal, abstract ideas. But classical Chinese thought, it was always much more focused on practical things, on conduct and action in a specific situation, not some detached concept.
So what does all this philosophy actually mean in the real world today? Well, it means that in many parts of the developing world, China's playbook gives it a massive, built-in structural advantage. Let's break down exactly why that is.
Okay, first, China's offer is incredibly simple. Here's money, here are projects, and there are no strings attached. No lectures about good governance or human rights. That makes their model a perfect fit for authoritarian or corrupt governments. And because their money is state-controlled, they can take huge risks on projects that a private American company would run away from.
This quote from the piece just nails it. China operates without any need for a moral apology. If a partnership serves their interests, it really doesn't matter what kind of regime they're dealing with.
And this creates this huge asymmetry. See, when the US supports a questionable regime for strategic reasons, it gets hammered at home and abroad for being a hypocrite. But China, they never claimed to be the world's moral compass in the first place. So when they do the same thing, there's zero reputational cost. No one's surprised.
The analysis also points out that, let's be honest, in a lot of countries, politics runs on backroom deals and who you know, not on transparent rules. China's approach, which doesn't bother with lectures on reform, just fits into that reality way more smoothly than the American model ever could.
And then there's the money. The economic engines are totally different. American companies need stability. They need the rule of law before they'll invest. But China's massive state-owned companies, they can afford to lose money for years if it means securing a critical port or access to natural resources a decade down the line. They're playing the long game.
So all of this adds up to a really profound dilemma for American policymakers. And it's especially tricky for a president like Donald Trump, whose personal instincts often seem to clash with decades of traditional U.S. foreign policy.
And the article points out this really fascinating tension. President Trump's gut instincts are often very pragmatic, very transactional, a lot like Beijing's actually. But he can't completely shake America's historical role as the defender of the free world. It's like he's caught between these two completely different approaches.
At the end of the day, what China offers is incredibly straightforward and, for a lot of leaders, incredibly attractive. They're not offering lectures about democracy. They're offering concrete things: cash, roads, and a powerful friend at the United Nations.
And so we get to the author's main takeaway.
For the U.S. to truly beat China at this game, it wouldn't just need a new set of policies. It would need to fundamentally change its entire political culture. It would have to abandon a huge part of what makes it, well, America.
This whole thing forces an even bigger, maybe more uncomfortable question. Besides a few specific security threats, how important are places like Africa and the Caribbean to America's core interests anyway? Is this even a race the U.S. needs to win?
And this really highlights the mismatch in timelines, right? China is playing a patient, decades-long game for resources and global influence. American interests, by contrast, are often much more focused on the here and now, on the next crisis. Which leaves us with this final, really challenging thought from the analysis. Trump might admire parts of China's no-nonsense model, but as long as the United States defines itself as a nation that stands for certain values, it might always be at a disadvantage on this kind of terrain. And the ultimate question then becomes, what would it cost America's soul to win?